Hello and welcome to SAP PAPM Training. Today we will see what is SAP PAPM and the content of this training, how we can learn SAP PAPM. So SAP PAPM basically means profitability and performance management. So let's see what is provided in this training. Let's move to next slide. Okay. So here is the overall course content of SAP PAPM. So how that is works. So basically this training is for on-premise SAP PAPM where it will be approx 30 hours of training, and the content and the structure of training will be like this. So first we have an introduction and overview of PAPM, which will be a PPT that we are currently going through, and here I will explain the basic overview what is PAPM and the concepts in PAPM. This is basically 1 or 2 sessions, and this will be in the PPT mode. Now once we understand what is the PAPM, then we will move to PAPM modeling part. So basically whenever we build some models in PAPM to achieve some business requirement, that is called PAPM modeling. So in modeling, how it works is like we have different functions in PAPM. For example, there is an information functions which brings data into PAPM. Then we have processing functions which process data within PAPM. Then we have writer functions which writes the data either to a BW, or when we say adapter function, we can post an accounting document back to ACDoc using adapter function. Those functions are under writer and adapter function. Then whenever we want to show any output to the user, then we will use query functions. So these are different functions, structure functions also there. So these functions, the approach will be like I will be first explaining you each function individually. For example, under information function, there is a function which brings data into PAPM, for example, model table. So first I will explain what is model table and I will show this in system. So after this PPT, everything whatever I show you, I will refer documents. Along with that, I will show you in system how to do that step by step. So let's say I will explain you how to create a model table, and that will bring data into PAPM. Then we move to different functions. That let's say information function, I will show you how to create a view function. So first we'll see all the functions individually. Once we understand how functions individually works, then we will connect different functions. So when I say connect different function, what does this mean? So that means, for an example, if I say I need this kind of structure, so there is an S4 system and it have ACDoc A table, and let's say PAPM is here. It can be in S4 or other outside also, that we will discuss in later. My requirement is in PAPM I need data from ACDoc A. Then I will process the data doing the allocation or calculations. Then my requirement is to post back an accounting document back to ACDoc A. So if this is the requirement, then I will be using a information function which sends or brings data into PAPM. Then I use processing functions which can build this calculation within PAPM. Then I use writer or adapter function to post back this data to ACDoc. So to do this complete exercise, like getting the data from ACDoc, then allocating within PAPM and post back, we will be interconnecting those different functions in such a way so that the business requirement is uh, completed. So here in this example, here I will select, let's say, model table that will bring data into PAPM. Then within PAPM, I will use different function like view, then allocation, then query. Then once the user know that this is the allocation output, then it can post back. There you use adapter function. So this way, these functions will be interconnected by each other by means of input and output relationship. So the approach will be, first I will explain how the function individually works, how to activate the function, how to configure, how to create the function, and the first time. So once we know how to create the function, different all function independently, then I will show you how to connect those functions to achieve some business requirement. So once we know how this function connects with each other, then we will move to hands-on exercise. So here there is an hypothetical example of Bikers Dream Limited that we'll go through. So this is the same example that is available on Learning Hub. So here what will happen? All the functions that we learn, we will use in a realistic kind of example, that there are information given to us in form of tables. So those tables we will create within PAPM. Then from that data, we will try to calculate the profitability of this company. So basically that will involves, first we'll calculate material cost, then labor cost, then factory cost. So these two costs are indirect in nature. So these costs need not to be allocated, because we know for which product what material is used. But in case of indirect costs like factory cost, marketing cost, or finance and management cost, so those costs are indirect. So what we will do, we will do the allocation of these costs to the products. So there we will see how the allocation function works in detail, and what type of different variations of allocation function we will see there in the with the help of example only. So we will go in a sequence. Let's say there is some data available. So that data, whatever available to us, we'll create those tables in PAPM, and then we'll apply those functions that we learn above. Those functions like bringing data, then processing data, then calculating, allocating, then posting back, those kind of thing. We will understand with an example only. So it will be in a sequence, like first material cost calculation will be there, then labor cost calculation, factory cost, these calculation, then allocation, then marketing cost, and finance and management cost. So once we all the costs are there, then we'll add all the costs to like calculate total cost. Once total cost is calculated, then we'll use like a calculation of profit or contribution, which will be total revenue minus total cost. So that will give us the contribution for per product. So that is explained in this exercise. So here in this exercise, I will be showing everything step by step in the system. Also, I will provide the documentation with screenshot and everything, which will be most detailed one. Like you can follow that document to do the exercise in your system. Now, once we know how the functions are connected, how to get the business requirement from that, then we will go to the end-to-end example. So when I say end-to-end example, it will be similar to like this. So in this Bikers Dream Limited example, we will be having the data from the exercise only, like whatever material cost they provide, we'll use that within PAPM only. So the tables that we'll create within PAPM. But in end-to-end example, I will show you real data from acid. Okay, we'll take some of the cost center line items. Then based on that, we will create some rules within PAPM. So those rules when we create in PAPM. So after that, we will be allocating those. After allocation, I will show you how to post back. When I say post back, it will be done using an adapter function. There we just need to do like this. So for example, once we allocate that, this is the output. In output there are certain fields, and when you say adapter function, in adapter function there are certain fields. So we need to map the fields from this output to the adapter fields. So for example, there is a company code here, and company code we also have in the allocation output. So we need to map that field company code from the allocation output should be mapped to this field. So this way we need to just map it. Once we map like cost center, there are certain mandatory fields. Once we map it, we activate the function and we post back. So what will happen? It will take the output from PAPM and it will post an accounting document to acid. OK. So that we'll see in end-to-end example. Now here we'll see two things. When I say end-to-end example, there will be two perspectives. First perspective will be from modeling user. When I say modeling user, means this part, like the person or consultant who will be building that model. So we will see how to create that modeling from modeling user perspective. And once that modeling is complete, then here what we will do, we'll connect it to end user activity. So that same, first I will show you the post back using modeling user activity. Then same post back I will show you how to create the end user activities, and the same things will perform from the end user screen and how it will be done to end user screen. So in this end-to-end example, we will understand the complete life cycle of a PAPM implementation. What are those steps available? Every time when we do some implementation in PAPM, I will be explaining this 5 steps that will always go through 5 steps. So there, from modeling user perspective, we'll see. From end user perspective, both we will see. So this was end-to-end example that we will cover. Now, after completing the end-to-end example, there are some other miscellaneous topics that will also be covered during this training. For example, this my activity for end user training, my events, my reports. So my reports is used for what if analysis in PAPM. So that we'll see what is what if analysis, how to build that model of what if analysis. Then application monitor, which will show every time you run any activity in PAPM, that will show the logs, what happens, an error or something. So those things we'll see. And in the end, there are certain uh, options, which is like running the PAPM function from GUI screen on GUI screen. Like you can schedule a background job of a PAPM function that we'll see. Then there are other topics like sample content. So sample contents means sample PAPM models built by SAP PAPM for particular industries. Those are available as when we install PAPM. So after the training, you will be able to understand how those models are configured. So for example, if you want to search for a particular industry, you can go to that particular industry and see the model they built. So if you go currently, you won't be able to understand what is happening, but after the training, you will be able to establish and see how those sample contents are built for a particular industry, and you can understand them. And in help.sap.com, it also provide the documentation of each step, how what is happening at each step. So you will be able to understand the sample content of PAPM. Then there is a partitioning topic. So this is also available in PAPM. For example, uh, if your current CPU memory is giving you error, like memory is outflow or something, like it will give some error, memory, not enough memory available to do the PAPM task. So in those cases, what we can do, we can use partitioning. Partitioning basically logically separates the data set into subset so that it can process parallelly or sequentially, so that it does not hit the maximum utilization of CPU that we'll cover. Now, during this is just an overview, like what is the content that we'll go through. Now, for this content to be provided, we will be providing you some materials. So these are training materials provided. The first one is this PPT, and this is like overview of PAPM. Then there is a PAPM ebook from SAP Learning Hub. So this is not a public document, but we will be providing a PDF. You can go through that. Then there is a PAPM 10 exercise from SAP Learning Hub. This is also not a public document. There I will provide, this is an exercise document from Learning Hub, and it have the exercise and the solution. But the solution of this here is in SAP system, SAP Learning Hub system. And to help us to understand it better, I have created the solution of this exercise in a Word document in our training system that we will be using. So that Word document also will be provided. This is like quite lengthy Word document, 180 pages. So it have most detailed screenshot step by step for that, how to do that exercise in our current training system. So that will be provided here. Along with that, we will refer application help document from SAP Learning Hub. Sorry, not Learning Hub, saphelp.com. So that we will take a reference for each any particular function or anything that will come. So this is the uh, uh, training material that will be provided. Now, after going through this training, what you will be able to do. So what you will be able to, you will be able to map a business requirement to PAPM. After the training, let's say you get the business blueprint from the client, and you build some kind of model in Excel first. Once you know what is the client requirement for either allocation or any other calculations, then you build that Excel from business requirement. That Excel you can map it to PAPM requirements. So that will be, you will be able to do. So the requirement that you have from business, for example, an allocation, that allocation example you will be able to build in PAPM. Now, because PAPM is relatively new, like technology. For example, it is not like 10 years or 20 years old in SAP. This is relatively new tool from SAP. So here there is no coding involved. So no coding. When I say no coding, that does not means we cannot use any coding, but there are options where we can use small little bit of formula that we can write, that I will be also showing. But overall in this training, we will not be using any coding part. So basically PAPM is in, it is a such an tool that you just see and drop down of, you just configure that, and when you activate, it generates the coding in backend it themselves. So there is no coding part that we will doing, but here I will be explaining little bit of formula. For example, some statement like if else statement that we will be using, like in PAPM. If you want to write some code, that SQL will be the language that is used to write complex code. So I will be showing you small simple example. For example, if you want to do sum of a particular field, that field name is, let's say, KSL. This is the technical name of amount in global currency. And if you want to do a sum of it, so the normal formula like that we write in Excel, same formula will be used, like SUM in the brackets KSL. That's it. These kind of coding I will be showing. And from my background, I am not from coding background. I'm SAP FICO plus PAPM. So another topic here, that after doing this training, you will be able to map the business requirement to PAPM. So if you, let's say, take this training, and who will be the right person to take this training, and what will be the benefits? So if I explain like different skill sets who can take this training. The first one is like FICO person who already know FICO, plus you can enhance PAPM on top of this. So this is what I did. Second, if you have the BPC person, plus you can have PAPM only. So PAPM have certain planning parts also. So you can see, if you have BPC knowledge, then PAPM also is good for you. Third skill set is like you can have HANA analytics person plus PAPM. So that is also in scope, like a few people have HANA skills plus PAPM. So fourth is ABAP plus PAPM. So ABAP is also used when we post back any document. In backend, it utilizes the BAPI. So there are some requirements when, say, standard PAPM functionality does not have those fields. So if we need to add certain fields in that BAPI, then we will use the ABAP person help to create a code, ABAP code, to post the documents that can be triggered from PAPM. So when I say PAPM, it integrates different data sources, but there are certain limitations of this training. So that will, let me discuss that. So PAPM is like very vast in nature. It can be applied to any industry now. So there are certain specific functions in PAPM which are industry specific. For example, banking and insurance businesses use different functions altogether. So there are specific functions given in PAPM for those banking and insurance clients. For example, model RDL, fund modeling, fund transfer pricing, like when insurance and banking company transfer the funds from one company to another, what is that funds transfer pricing? Then there is evaluation also. So these are the functions which are industry specific, and it will be not covered in this training. So these are the limitation, because I will be covering from PAPM perspective only. So one another thing to notice here is that, so let's say there is a PAPM. So there are in PAPM there are multiple ways to bring the data. So one way is to bring a DDIC table. DDIC table means any standard tables you can bring into PAPM. So that I will show you, and I will show you in the system how to bring data from ACID-OK. Another option is given like HANA table. You can bring any HANA table into PAPM. So the scope of the training is, I will show you how to bring any existing HANA table data into PAPM. I will not be showing you how to create HANA table or HANA view. So that is not part of training. Creation of HANA view, creation of BW, those kind of things are not a part of this training, but I will show you how to consume any existing HANA table or HANA view into PAPM. So that will be our part. So we'll take an example where you see there is a HANA table already created, and when I activate and bring data from that HANA table into PAPM, we'll be able to see the data in PAPM. But the creation of HANA tables and HANA view is not part of this training. That is HANA Analytics, a separate training altogether. Same way, there is a BW info objects. So certain BW info objects we can create from PAPM itself, but we can consume external BW objects into PAPM also. So creation of BW objects in BW is not a part of this training, but having existing BW consumed in PAPM is a part of training. I will show you existing BW. We can consume the data from that BW into PAPM. So there are certain components of PAPM that are used for planning also. So that I am not expert on planning. I will be showing you just basic information on those type of planning. Basically the writer function in BW used for planning, and then I will show you, give you links, some blogs, so you can understand from planning perspective. But I am not a planning expert in PAPM. So that is the overall structure of our training. So now basically it is like 30 hours. So we will try to finish it in 1 month. So every day is like 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes. There will be daily sessions for 5 days a week, and we can see how it goes. We can take sometime I take one longer session on weekend if we are lagging behind. So this way we complete the training within 1 month. So the how we will structure this training will be started first will with the PPT, so that we do not need a server for like first 1 or 2 classes. Then we need a server access. So here the server access charge monthly, and we will be like I will be providing one server access. For the charges are the separate charges for server access, and that we will be using throughout the training for 1 month. So if our training goes beyond 1 month, then we need to buy the server again. That will be extra cost for you. So this is the overall content. So let's move to what is SAP PAPM, just a brief overview of PAPM. So PAPM stands for Profitability and Performance Management. So it is SAP PAPM is an analytical tool developed by SAP. In true fashion, PAPM is not a wholly new solution, but is rather rebranding of previous tool, which is called FSPER. FSPER for Performance Management for Financial Services. So before PAPM, there was a product by SAP, which is SAP FSPER. That was Performance Management for Financial Services. So this was launched in, like FSPER was launched in 2017. So what is the main capability? So providing the calculation capability with real-time data access to the source without need of data replication. So this was the main capability of this FSPER, that when it reads the data from, let's say, ACID-OK, it does not copy the data from ACID-OK into PAPM. Instead, it will read at real time without any data replication. That was the main capability of FSPER. So now PAPM was built on the same foundation. It was built on the top of FSPER. So, but now earlier this FSPER was only for banking and insurance clients, meaning financial services. But with the PAPM, they remove the restriction of this banking and insurance. Instead, they give this to all industries. So now PAPM can be applied or installed to all different kind of sectors. So the PAPM is a complete end-to-end analytical tool that takes data from many different places, perform calculations. It can enrich the data, analyze the data output. It also have ability to run simulation. PAPM only requirement is a HANA database, either cloud or on-premise, and it is NetWeaver 5. PAPM run directly on a web browser. So there is a the interface of PAPM is Fiori. So when you click on a T code of PAPM, it will open in a Fiori or web page. So PAPM was launched in 2018 and currently releases SAP PAPM release 3.0 as Server Pack 20. Currently 20 Server Pack is there. But our training, we have this on-premise SAP PAPM SP13. So SP13 itself is like good enough. If you learn SP13, there is no issue that you can learn SP13 onwards. There is only minor performance improvements and there are only few differences, but there are no such new drastic functions or drastic changes that happens from 13 to 20. So there is a documentation provided by SAP what's new in SAP 20. For each release we can go through that, but SAP 13 itself is a good enough to learn PAPM. All the functions work similar. So the main highlight of PAPM is that it does not replicate the data from the source. So that we will see in details in the training. Now SAP like represents PAPM to do basically three things. So one, it can a business data aggregator. So it aggregates the data from like many sources for SAP, either it is from SAP or non-SAP. Both data we can bring into PAPM without data replication. So this allows real-time connection with very fast loading time. When setting up the environment within PAPM, data replication is possible if desired. So normally, when we read data from a source, like for example, acid OK, we do not copy or store the data into PAPM. Instead, we read at the runtime or real time from the table itself. So this gives us the faster loading time. But if we want to store data, let's say there is a requirement, if you want to store certain data in PAPM, then data replication is possible, is an optional if desired. So we can store the data in PAPM also, it is optional. Second, it can act as a calculation engine. It can do very complex calculation of for large volume of data. So PAPM can process large data volume, calculation, data enrichment in parallel. Calculation can include such things as joins, currency conversion, custom formula, SQL function, direct indirect allocations. Calculation performed leave a data trail, allowing a traceability and accountability. So as each step, but you can check like how the calculation happening step by step. And calculation can be written back to a BW database, allowing PAPM to do basic planning tool. So PAPM can act as a planning tool also. We can write back data to a BW database also. Now, third component of PAPM is simulation application. Simulation means data can be analyzed in real time with the live data connection. PAPM output are built like queries and can be edited at the same way, ad hoc and by end user if desired. Currently, PAPM will output as a table and one of three basic charts. We can see output of PAPM in the charts, or we can see a data grid like data in the table. We can see a value flow also, like how the value flowing from certain parameters to another characteristics. We can do what if analysis also. For example, if I want to, if I build a model, let's say the cost allocation or cost calculation model. In that case, let's say here is like material cost this much, and labor cost this much, and other cost, and then the total cost. Now, if you want to see what if my material cost increase by 1%, so this 1% you want user to input. So you will design a model in such a way that user will input some percentage, and that percentage will be applied on the material cost that we have calculated. So whenever user will be able to change it multiple times. So on the output screen, when first user will go and input 1%, it will notice that this is, let's say, material cost is at 1% is 101, and there is a total 300 something, for example. So now user can go back again and change this to 2% or 5% and see the impact of that in the total model that we created. So that is called what if analysis. We'll see how to build that kind of logic. So without coding, we don't do any coding at any place in PAPM. There are some small formula like in Excel, concat, or those kind of formula we'll be using, but there is no hard code coding. Now, when to use PAPM? So there are different possibility when to use PAPM, where we have known SAP data is needed and simulation is required, when we required faster runtime and flexibility also. So PAPM functions are very flexible. We can design like the way we want. It is like started from scratch. And if you want to change an existing PAPM model, there also we can do with the flexibility. For example, the output of PAPM itself can be viewed as three different formats. For example, if you want to see table, if you want to see charts, so those kind of flexibility is there. It avoids custom coding. So for example, if you need to do an allocation, so here I'm taking one example that there is an allocation which is happen in S4 only, like you do configuration of allocation and then let's say PAPM. So in S4, if something is standard available, then you don't need coding. But PAPM you just need to build from scratch. So there is no coding itself. Now, for example, the standard code that for allocation is there, you want to do some like custom enhancement on top of that code. So for that, you need to write an ABAP program, and then you need Z program that you call and you run the allocation. So that custom coding is required here. Like you need a ABAP person. But here, if you want to change it, the same PAPM person who develop this model can do this requirement also without like there is another like coding or something. So now, why this is faster than like any other tool? So for that, we'll understand with the help of one example. So for example, there is an allocation. So when we run that allocation in S4, there is a backend program that is called, and that program how it works, that works on GUI, and the underlying coding language is ABAP. So how it works? So it creates some internal tables. For example, if there is data, we need to fetch the amount to allocate. It will create internal table, fetch the amount, then it will do the calculation based on the ratio of the allocation. For example, cost center allocation. So if source cost center is 100, then it to allocate 60/40. So how it works? It creates internal tables within the S4 in the backend. Then it do the calculation. It show the output. So this is how the ABAP program works. So when it read the data from database of ACDOK into GUI, but here in the PAPM, the approach or the technology that is used is different. So we read the data directly from database from in PAPM. We are not going through an ABAP program. There is no ABAP program in PAPM. It uses the direct access, like the data available in ACDOK directly consumed into PAPM and then process within PAPM. So while processing, it also creates white tables in PAPM that it stores data temporarily at the runtime. But the processing time and the volume it can handle is way more than the S4 which can handle. For example, if your client is having S4 and all allocation needs are satisfied, then allocation and financial close is also happening within the time frame. Then in that case, you do not require PAPM. PAPM is required for complex requirements where, let's say, there is a standard code is not there. You are creating multiple G programs to do your specific allocations. which are not available in standard S4. And if you are bringing data into S4 from another server, for example, in this case only, if you have an interface with another system that brings data into S4, and then that data you are writing a code to allocate. So those kind of requirements can easily be done in PAPM without any coding. So you can fetch the another external database into PAPM and S4 database also into PAPM. Then you can apply the modeling in PAPM. So this whole exercise in PAPM without coding, you will be able to generate the output that you want. So this is PAPM capabilities. Now, a simple question like which of the following is not component of PAPM? First is simulation application, process improver, calculation engine, business data aggregator. So if you see the previous section, PAPM does not improve any process. So here the answer will be this, process improver. PAPM will not improve your process. It is you to design your improved process in PAPM, then it will work effectively. So the design that you will build, the process, whatever you do, it will be in PAPM, but it will automatically does not improve your process by looking at like some other factors. It will work as you want. There are three components. These are the three, and this is the not a component, which is this process improver. Now see deployment options. So PAPM is an add-on. It will not come as a standard when we install SAP. It is like only two types, either on-premise or cloud. Our training is on on-premise. Now within on-premise, like there are different options where you can install PAPM. First is like you install an S4HANA itself, where a S4HANA system, on top of that you install PAPM. That is this option. Second, you install on BW for HANA, you can add on PAPM. Third is FSDP, Financial Risk Data Platform. This is for banking and insurance clients. So the data model of those banking and insurance clients is separate. So you can install on top of that only industry specific. And last is PAPM integrated. This is the called sidecar approach. You take any external SAP system. On top of that, you just install PAPM only, and then you can bring data from different databases. So in we will see like the factors when you consider where to install. That depends. Like you need to involve basis team and all other teams also when you decide where to install PAPM. That is basically and multi-team exercise in the beginning of the project where you decide where to install PAPM. So different factors, because PAPM you will utilize huge memory when it runs huge volume of data. So in certain cases the companies do not install in their S4 system because the S4 system already occupied with the current processes happening. If they have the BW component, so they can install, or if they do not have a separate BW component, they can install in a sidecar approach. This is sidecar, meaning separately PAPM in this different SAP system. So this is not of an S4. S4 is not there. So now in our training system, what will be the case? So this will be the case in our system. PAPM is installed on S4 HANA. So the approach here will be, so I'm showing you. So let's say we need to fetch data from ACDOK. In this system, how it works. So in this system, if it is installed on same S4 system, and if you want to fetch the data from this ACDOK to PAPM. So let's say there is ACDOK table here. We want to fetch it into PAPM. That is straightforward. Like you create a model table and select which table you need, and the data will be there, real-time replicated. You can read that real-time in PAPM. But let's say the second scenario, if it is installed on BW. So in that case, and there is an S4 system which have the ACDOK table, and this ACDOK table you need in this PAPM. Then how it will work? So there are two ways to achieve this. First one, there is a smart data access. So basis team needs to connect these systems because these are SAP systems. So through RFC, they will connect this, and they will connect the remote source name and everything. So their basis team will provide you remote source name remote schema, all those things. Under that, you will find this AC docker and you can fetch in real time. Another way, you can ask an HANA person to create a model HANA view on top of AC docker. If they create HANA view on top of AC docker, this HANA view can be fetched into this PAPM. Again, basis team needs to connect this system based on a schema that they will provide. They will provide the HANA view name, and you will be able to see that HANA view in this uh, different schema that the basis team will provide. You can fetch the data using an HANA view from ACDoc also. So there are different variations of that. So in our training, we will be using this scenario where SAP S4 HANA is there already, and on top of that we have PAPM. So once we need the data from ACDoc, it is same like we do not need to establish any connection here. So this is the our deployment strategy for PAPM training. In this, in our case, this will be the case for us. Now these are the installation options. For example, I showed you option 1, which is a sidecar, that is an S4 system with PAPM. Second is for S4 HANA with top of PAPM. Third is BW for HANA. So these are different installation options that we discussed previously. Now let's understand the process flow in PAPM. When we build a model or when we design a model, what will be the process flow? So our design here, I am showing you process flow of a PAPM is one of the process flow. It is not always the case. I am showing you this simple example of allocation. So in one particular allocation, this might be the process flow that we will be performing in PAPM from high level view perspective. So let's say when we need to do allocation or something, first thing we need to integrate the data. So integrate the data means you collect GL, non-GL, SAP, non-SAP, whatever is your source data, you need to identify, and where it is coming from, you need to identify. So once you identify, you create different functions within PAPM to collect the data. Then once you collect, you can read and enrich the data. So you can use different functions like model table, model view, join, union to enrich the data. For example, when you read ACDoc A, you won't be reading complete ACDoc A because that have a lot of records, but there might be some specific records that you want to utilize for this modeling. So you will apply filters before bringing data into PAPM. So that is done here. Then you want to see reports of the fetched data. Like if you want to see when you allocate, what will be your source amount to allocate. So you can create a report in PAPM, and then you can review the data what is coming into PAPM in this report. You can use a query function for that. Now, once you have the data, then you build a modeling logic. Modeling logic is like how to allocate that source. For example, a cost center allocation, there is a source cost center, there is a target cost center, and there is a ratio of that we need to allocate. So that portion of modeling will be using allocation function to allocate cost. Then once the modeling is done, then end user will execute that model. Once that execution is triggered by end user, all the previous settings that we stored here, and that will be triggered, and it will allocate and show the output is there. So to see the output, there is an analyze. We will analyze the output. We can perform what if analysis. If you design the model for what if, then we can extract that either in a file, or we can post back to the ACDoc. We can post back to the BW. So those kind of thing we can do. So then integration. Integrate with BPC, PAPM also can send data to SSC dashboard. Now, in this like PAPM have ability to integrate with the BPC. PAPM we can post data, like you can send data to SSC dashboard. For example, there is a BW info provider. We can write to BW info provider from PAPM, and that BW info provider can be consumed in SAP for dashboard. So those things are available. Then once we like satisfy with the allocation output, we want to post back in a financial document. So then we can use this post back to GL. So here there is a function called remote function adapter, which can post an GL document, AP document, AR document, whichever we design. It can post back the accounting document to S4, back to the AC doc. So this is the steps that we will do and over overview perspective. And this is example I showed you, one for allocation. So within these steps, there are different function involved. So to fetch the data, there are different functions, 3, 4 function we can use. To enrich the data, we can use different function. Then report, we'll use query function. And for modeling, we'll use combination of views, processing function, allocation function. So this way, the logic will go on. So first we know business requirement, then we know what is the source data, then we do processing, then we show output and what to do with the output. That will decide either post back to GL or so on. So this is how the process flow of PAPM works. Now there is an application for business users. So this is the GUI screen of PAPM. In this GUI screen, when you log in into PAPM, so once we start the training, I will show you how to log in, what are different ways to log in, either to log in from GUI or directly to Fiori, that we'll see. So here when you log in into a PAPM where PAPM installed, so you will notice this PAPM is there part. Under this PAPM, there are different sections. One is admin, like basis team will set up something. Then there is a modeling. This is the part where we do the modeling. Then there is execution. This is end user part, system reports, then tools. So this is a complete PAPM. So these are the T codes. So all the modelings are done in my environment. So this is the, if you click on this T code in system, it will open in a Fury. So we'll see each one of them one by one how it works. So this is first is default settings. Under admin there is something called default settings. So this will be like used when we create the environments. And so this is the screen look like. This is a web page that is called for default settings. Then there is under the administration, second is teams. So under the teams, this is the screen of teams looks like. So this is basically used for creating the teams within PAPM. For example, if you want to set certain activity should be performing by certain teams, so then no other teams user can see those activity. So those kind of requirement can be set up by teams. So we create teams. Under the teams will enter the users who are the part of that team. Then under modeling, so there is first is modeling overview. This is just a statistical representation of environments available in PAPM. And what is the biggest environment? We don't do anything here, just for information purpose. Then is the main modeling my environment. So environment is an object in PAPM which will be created, transported, edited, and all those things we can do in the environment. So before going to these steps, let me show you what is the structure of modeling that we will follow in PAPM. So here is the structure of PAPM. So whenever we create any, whenever we talk about PAPM, this will be the structure. So first there will be an environment, and first there will be an environment on top of. Under environment there is a calculation unit. Under calculation unit there are different functions. So the functions that I spoke earlier, like information function, processing function, all the functions are created here. But the structure that is follows is like this. First we create an environment. Under that environment, so what is environment and everything we will discuss, but this is the just an overview of structure of the PAPM modeling. So first we create an environment. When we create the environment with the same name, for example, if I create environment TR1, with the same name TR1, there is a calculation unit created automatically. Under that calculation unit, we can start creating the functions. So functions means like information function that brings data, processing function, writer function, adapter function, those kind of functions. They are connected into each other to solve a particular business requirement. So this is how the structure of PAPM modeling will always be. So basically there is an environment. Under environment there is a calculation unit. Under calculation unit, there will be function 1, 2, 3, like they are interconnected. So this is the overall structure of PAPM. Now, when we need to create a TR, for example, we did some development in the dev system and we want to send it to quality. So do I have options to send, let's say, function B only to quality? No. TR can only be created at the environment level. So whole environment will go once. So you go to environment, you create TR, and whatever under this environment will go completely. We cannot send it in the portions. So environment is an object. So let's come back to environment here. This is the environment screen that took like. So whenever we have environment and their versions, so can be added, edited, copied, merged, removed, and transported. So these are the things that we can do with the environment. Changes made to environment are not only saved but also historized with the information about who made the change and when. This information also available in this application. So there is something called environment nodes. Nodes are just for information purpose to structure the multiple environments in an hierarchy. So if you see this example here, there is a sample node. So the icon of node is different, I something. And you see environment name is N01. And you see version, there is no version. So node never will have version. Then we have environment. So under this sample node, these are the two environments. So the icon of environment is like this, PC with filled boxes. This is the environment. It is ZS1, version is 1. So whenever we create an environment, system will check the key. So key is the combination of these two. It will check if GS1 version 1 already exists, you cannot create. So you can create GS1 version 2 because that does not exist. 2 you can create. So this way that creation of environment can be done here in my environment. So here we create the environment like this. That's a test demo. Then we go inside this environment, and inside this environment there will be a calculation unit already created. Under that calculation unit we will start creating the functions. So this how to create environment, how to create environment nodes, those things will be covered like when we start the training. And now let me show you just one example of the end user screen that you will see for a already built model, how that looked like. For that I will be showing you one Word document that is the our solution of the this exercise. Here let me show you some of the screenshots from the system. So here you see when you go inside the environment, it will look like this. This is the inside the environment. So on the left hand side you see the functions. So the first function is always a calculation unit. So this is R12. This is the calculation unit. So under this calculation unit, we can again create the functions which is called description function. Like source data is the description function. Under that I have created the function. So this is the model table function. This is model PW function. So you see these are the functions created here. On the right hand side, if you select a particular function, let's say in this case this is selected, on the right hand side this is the model table functions. So here there is a connection type, then model table coming from which source is environment, meaning we are creating our own table. Then transport data, then these are the fields under this table. So in this model table there is an option to create a table within PAPM. So this is that option. So under the model table source, there are different options, out of which one of them is environment. So this is how the screen look like. Now this is the modeling user screen that in my environment. Let me show you one example where we have the end user screen also. So this is one of the allocation model that we'll go through, but I'm showing you this end user screen. End user will log in here in my activity. Go to a process. You see these are the process. Go to a process which is this allocation of ABC. Under this process, these are the activities it can perform. So user will come here, click on this allocation. Then first allocation for what? So first they will come to selection. Under selection, they will enter fiscal year, period, and cost center for which they want to do allocation, and then save. After that, they will come to my activity. In my activity, they will click on this view allocation output and click on run. What that will do, it will take real-time data from ACID-OK and do the processing. And once that processing is done, you will click on the query and click on launch. And that query will show you the output. Once you see the output is correct, then you click on post back to ACID-OK and then click on run. So this will post an accounting document to ACID-OK. So this is the end user part that we'll be doing. But I will be showing you first modeling part, then connecting modeling to the end user activity, then we'll perform from end user part. When after the end of this training, you will be able to understand whole concept behind this. So if I show you, so this is the step for end user will be performing. So we'll go to my activity, then click on selections here. Under selection, you will see this screen. You will enter fiscal year, period, cost center. Click on save. Then you come to view allocation output and you click on run. When the run is complete, you want to see the output, you will click on query and click on launch. When you launch the query, it will show in the graphs. You can change the chart to a data grid. It will show in this table format. So once you know this is the data that is corrected, then you can see the value flow also, how the value is flowing from each parameter to different parameters here. That we will explain in the training. And then last option is you want to see this query in analysis for office also. There is an option. So you can click on launch in Excel here. That will open the query in analysis for office. And the last option is post back. You click on this post back to ACID-OK, click on run, and then it will post back the document. So I can show you one screenshot that from post back also. Yeah, so when you click on post back, so this is how the output will get posted to ACID-OK as a financial document. Which type of document it will post, that everything needs to be configured. So this is an overview of the training that we will go through, and here please check, and the below links you can directly DM on LinkedIn. There we will, if you want to connect and want to take this training, you can directly DM me on the LinkedIn. So the link is provided in the description, and if you are interested, please DM on this below LinkedIn link. Thank you very much. Bye bye.